Welcome to The Nest Show, the podcast that brings you insights into the crypto market, trading and investment experiences, and what we're looking forward to as we navigate the space together. Before we get started with the show, I want to thank our friends and sponsors over at Prime XBT, where many of our listeners have already signed up to trade by visiting the birbnest.com/PrimeXBT. Now, we're excited to reward you with a very special offer brought to you by our friends at Prime. Visit the announcement channel on our Discord to learn how you can receive a one-time trading bonus equal to 50% of your deposit amount. Exciting times indeed. Prime XBT is the most powerful trading platform offering immediate access to over 30 assets. Users may trade cryptocurrencies, forex, commodities, stock indices, and much more, all from a single Bitcoin settled account. Prime XBT gives experienced traders up to 100x leverage to multiply their capital while also providing users with multiple order types, low trading fees, and ultra high liquidity to equip them with a one-of-a-kind trading experience. Registration does not require any user information, so visit the link below and start trading on Prime XBT in minutes. You'll be hearing much more about Prime XBT here and why we're so excited about the products they already offer, including a one-of-a-kind BTC and Ethereum options trading platform called Turbo, and an upcoming co-vesting product that will give traders and investors alike an entirely unique opportunity to multiply their capital. We're excited to congratulate the Prime XBT team on a couple of project milestones, starting with the launch of direct crypto purchases with the use of credit and debit cards. To learn more about how to purchase crypto on the Prime XBT platform using debit or credit cards, visit Prime XBT today for a complete walkthrough. Also, we want to regard Prime for their progress integrating TradingView chart technology into their charting platform and their continued progress with the co-vesting module that will allow traders to mirror the activity of other traders. To find out more about the extensive progress of the co-vesting build-out, visit the Prime XBT blog for the most up-to-date information. And now for the show. What the Nest Show is. This is a podcast brought to you by the Birb Nest community, an independent crypto and forex-centered trading community built to sharpen each other in capturing opportunities in the markets while protecting capital along the way. What this is not: trading advice. We are not financial advisors, and you should not regard any information here or in the Nest Club as financial advice. You should always consult a licensed financial advisor before making any financial decisions.
Hi guys, it's Crypto Birb here and welcome to today's episode of The Nest Show. And today we are having a truly amazing and special guest, known by the perfect name of Scott Merker. How's it going, Scott?
Good, man. It's good to see you. It's funny always that we end up across screens from each other, but I think probably most people don't know that we've actually met in person. So it's good to catch up.
Oh yeah, I agree. Long time no see, last time we've seen each other, it was in Vegas, right? It was in Vegas last year. It was an amazing conference of World Crypto Conference, again, in Las Vegas. You were, just being there on the stage, throwing this amazing materials to the public, to the audience about the markets. And I got to tell you, man, you're so talented. You are so charismatic. You're having so much charisma that people love talking to you. People love just seeing you talk. And
I hope so. Thank you.
No, that's what I can tell you. I was just sitting there.
I appreciate that.
There. And all of your experience that you're having with you, I think it just simply corresponds with how amazing and brilliant person you are today. And, how about we give it a quick and brief start with your history, because your history is like one of the richest I know, right? It's one of the most interesting histories from all the, let's say, CT crypto Twitter people. You're, kindly sharing it with people on your Twitter profile every day, be it from your music and be it for trading. So how about we give it a go and hear how it all started for you to be in a place that you are here today?
Sure. And thank you for the kind words. I really do appreciate that. So, I was like a kid in a small town in Florida. I did not grow up like in a big city. There was not very much culture. It was the deep South. It was just but my parents were from New York and Miami. So immigrant families, grew up in big cities. So we always had sort of that culture, and my parents were both well educated and they really believed in teaching us financial literacy, which I think was not like a major priority with most people, certainly in the 80s. Even now, schools barely teach financial literacy. So they got me very early into caring about stocks. Like when I was young, I would buy, a share of Apple or Disney or something for a few dollars. And it got me very interested in markets. Fast forward to college, I went to the University of Pennsylvania in Philadelphia. And, I was not a graduate of the Wharton School, but it was the number one business school basically in the world at the time. And so I was able to take classes in the Wharton School, and all of my friends were like headed straight to Wall Street. So when I was graduating college, I had a job offer to go to work at Solomon Smith Barney, like to do investment banking, and I said no because I didn't want to work 100 hours a week, and I decided that I was going to pursue DJing and music. There was a lot of other things sort of that happened along that path, but I really was very passionate about doing music. So I also, at that time, I started a small magazine in Philadelphia, and that's how I actually survived, was kind of running that business while I was DJing. Sold it to a company in New York. There was a bigger magazine, and I went to run their magazine for a year or two. And then from there on, I completely quit and just went into music. And like I always talk about, like I had this Ivy League degree, but I was literally delivering packages in the freezing cold in New York City, like for an advertising agency for $500 a week to like be able to try to do music. And everyone thought I was nuts because all my friends were like investment bankers and hedge fund guys and stuff. And I was literally like just the guy showing up in the mailroom, delivering packages. And I kind of got a break in music eventually after many, many, many years of struggling through it. And, it was an amazing career for a long time. I never lost that love for markets, and for trading. I did it very poorly, to be honest. Like I was a gambler, FOMO, gambler, all the things that you read about, which is why I talk about it so much now, because like I'm in my 40s. I've learned every lesson that everybody who's trading for the first time has learned. And I learned it the hard way and had nobody there, no YouTube videos, no mentors at the time to teach me what I was doing wrong, And like, I remember that pain and like those horrible feelings that like all I had to do was nothing and I would have money, like I was literally just throwing money away. I didn't have much of it and it was just terrible. And I hope now that I can help a few people like avoid that happening, because it really is, it's just truly terrible. My life has been very blessed. I never was worried that I would be homeless or anything like that, but like I had very hard times where I was really broke, and when you experience that, you never want to feel it again, So my music career got me out of debt. It got me to a certain level. And then once I had kids, it was time to pack that up and do something else. And since I had this passion for trading and markets, and crypto was kind of the thing at the time, it just was an easy transition for me into that. And then, this just sort of like snowballed and went, kind of out of control. People started following me. It was never my intention. I didn't even know what crypto Twitter was. I was just like a guy. I was trying to find trades like everyone else, I was following people like you, So, and so here we are, I absolutely love it. It's amazing. Like trading is still so much fun. And, it's allowed me to, I always like loved making music and producing content. And so like being able to do a newsletter and a podcast just like this and have conversations, to me, it's just sort of a natural extension of what I already enjoyed before, just in a totally different arena. So, it's like I'm sure you get it too. It's like, well, if you're such a great trader, why do you have to have a podcast? Why do you have to newsletter? Well, I don't. I want to. It's fun. I love doing it, So here we are, that's really how I ended up here. A lot of twists and turns along the way, a lot of like small businesses I ran or consulted for or completely failed at. But, music was the core for about almost 20 years.
Well, that's quite a chunk, man. I think, your story can truly inspire a lot of people, you, again, because of your charisma, because of your actual, very kind type of personality, by just kind of like having, this natural feeling to deliver the help to the others, because you don't want them to actually, go through what you did, right? But, in the past, to an extent at least. I think, this pretty much enabled to gather a lot of interesting people around you, right? I believe that, any person that you meet, in the street is kind of like it's not an accident, right? You're not just meeting them accidentally.
Yeah.
Right. So whenever, let's say, I don't know, you are super talented, let's say for your DJing, right? So there you go, you do a gig, right? On the gig, you meet up some people would call accidentally, but you go in a place to meet, just such amazing and famous people, that you actually did. Like, throw in a couple of names of the guys that you actually met.
I mean, along the way, I've met, I've done stuff with Kanye, and I mean, people from like Crosby, Stills, and Nash, and Sheryl Crow, all the way to like, Kanye and Public Enemy and Justin Timberlake and, Rihanna.
You did with Justin Timberlake.
I never played with him. You're just asking people I meet. So I was in Japan on tour in 2006. I was the DJ in a band for a Japanese artist. He was like the Michael Jackson of Japan. So we were on this huge tour. And that was kind of my big break, even though I was just a guy in the band, And so one of the backup singers in my band, a woman named Felicia Graham, her best friend was one of Justin Timberlake's backup singers. So like, there's this like backup singing circuit, like where they all rotate and you go from person to person. And so Justin was in Japan for his first solo tour ever in Japan. I think he'd been there with NSYNC before. And so like one night, my friends we're going to a karaoke bar with a bunch of Justin Timberlake's like band. So we went to a karaoke bar in Japan, and it's like a private room, and he was there. You know what I mean? And so like we're hanging out. I literally I was singing Al Green, and he was like the backup vocals.
Jesus Christ!
So crazy.
So it's you who made him famous, man. He's famous totally. Because of you.
Gave him his big break. But like you said, I mean, a lot of things like that have happened to me. I don't know if it's like luck or right place at the right time, but like most of that, I got on that tour because I was DJing at a shitty little like crappy bar in New York, like a total dive. And some guy was there, and he was like, "I'm a drummer. I like your DJing. My friend is like auditioning DJs to be in this band." And so I went, and he was inviting me. I took the audition. I won the job, and I got to go on this huge tour. So it was just like happenstance, that serendipity that this guy was in the bar. He liked like the 10 minutes of my DJing that he heard. He invited me to audition, and then and the audition was like, I got along really well with the music director, who was the drummer. And he was like, "Hey man, we got to jam." And so I started like playing like a Michael Jackson a cappella, and I put a beat behind it. He's like, "Oh yeah." And he's drumming, and we're just like vibing. And he was like, "You're cool. I want to travel with you." And that's how it happened. It wasn't because like I necessarily had the superior skill. I don't know, like 50 DJs auditioned or something. I just got along with the dude, And so you're right. I mean, I think that if you're like generally open to opportunity, then it comes to you. And if you're generally kind and friendly to people, that, that will hopefully resonate. It's funny, I get a lot, you too, but like you get a lot of criticism when you're in the Twitter community. People think you're faking things, or that it's all about money or this and that. There's nothing I can do to convince them, but I really am not. Like, I really was raised to be a very nice person and to care about others. That's how my parents were. They were hippies,
Yeah.
It's just the kind of person I am,
Yeah, and see this, Scott, you use the word luck, right? Some people would call that, they would, quote unquote, blame luck for all this success, right? But the truth is, or, they would just kind of like envy because they tell you you're lucky, right? But the truth is, again, that first of all, you need to accept the opportunity that comes. And, this luck is nothing without your actual proactivity and again acceptance for the opportunities.
Yeah, you have to work hard to be in opportunities for luck to find you, I think. And then you have to work hard enough to capitalize on that lucky opportunity. I mean, I think that anyone, certainly in music, art world, they'll tell you you can go on YouTube and see there's thousands of people who are more talented than the big artists that you see, right?
Yeah.
There's all these people that can sing their asses off, that can play their asses off, they're good looking, whatever, but they haven't gotten that lucky break, right? So like it's the most famous people are the ones who had the talent, also had the lucky opportunity, and then were like strong enough or lucky enough to really capitalize on that moment. And then it kind of has this snowball effect where it just gets bigger and bigger and better and better. And then it becomes sort of like an unstoppable machine, And so, yeah, I'm very lucky, and there's a lot of luck, but I can definitely say that like when those opportunities arose, I was not afraid to like go for it with everything that I had, you know, like I was not shy about it. I knew what I wanted and kind of went after it.
And I'm quite certain, this is how you actually define a successful person, talent is nothing, again, if you are not proactive about pushing, or kind of like, just again, accepting what you get from the world, right? And when you do, amazing things happen, right? That's super crazy. But, this, let's say, this lack takes me to the next topic, because we could call that you were lucky to learn your way through the past decades on the investment markets, right? For the legacy markets, as far as I know, you actually, experienced 2008 crisis by all the means in the investment, let's say, meaning of that. And what would you kind of like, describe this 2008 period for you? What kind of like, could have been done better on your end? What did you work on, and how do you compare that to 2020?
Right. So it's interesting. So I was in debt until 2006 when I booked that tour, and I used the money from that tour to pay off my credit cards. I had an old landlord that I owed money to, and I paid everybody off, and I had a little extra money for the first time. In fact, in 2001, I had bought a mutual fund with my graduation money for $5,000. It's all the money I had in the world. And I was like, I'm going to save this forever. And I literally had to cash it out to pay rent. And it was worth $3,200. So that was my first experience in totally getting trashed in the market, and then I had a little money after 2006 to put into the markets, nothing crazy. And I watched it all completely, evaporate like everyone else. I generally held through it. I didn't have money to really buy the huge dips or anything, but I held through it. And then in 2012, I went all in on an investment tip that someone had given me on a certain stock. There were pharmaceuticals, and I literally wrote it to zero, delisted from the stock exchange, nothing. And that, shut me out. So we could talk about my DJ career or music, whatever, say that I had lucky moments. I would argue that actually my luck took me so far, but I actually had some terrible experiences in music where I could have gotten much luckier. But markets, I paid my dues many times over. I went broke, I got hurt, I experienced every downside. So I don't think that there was any luck for me in markets. I think that I really learned the hard lessons. You can say that I was lucky, definitely being in crypto in early 2017, late 2016. Awesome. Yeah, that was great timing. But then if you're there in 2016, you say you were lucky if you were there in 2014. And if you were there in 2014, you say you were lucky if you were there in 2010, right? And the reality is those people weren't lucky. They had balls of steel, right? If you still have your crypto from 2010 and 2020, that is not luck, right? Yeah. And you had conviction in something that was nascent and completely a risky foreign concept, and you held to that conviction for this long. You were not just lucky, and I think I think it touches on the fact that in general, what you're saying about calling someone lucky, unless they just literally won the lottery or something, is just, it's a lazy description. It's a cop out. You know what I mean? It's just it's a personal way for you to somewhat minimize their accomplishments. I think that a lot of people, myself included, when I was younger, I was definitely a hater. I went through my phases where this DJ sucks and he shouldn't be bigger than me. He didn't even make his own music. I went through that whole trolley phase because I wanted to be as big as they were. It was jealousy, right? So I've experienced it. I know how that feels. And so I know when it's fired at us, or when you see it in the markets and stuff, I know what it is. And I think that most people will probably mature through it, and realize. And it's just the earlier that you get past that and become just a generally more positive person, and that you start to respect people's accomplishments as opposed to minimize them, that's when all the good things start happening to you as well.
Yeah, I think, there is a lot of... Yeah? Go on.
No, you were saying, I forgot, you were asking me about 2008 versus now. Very similar. I think that it was more painful then, obviously, because it bounced back so much harder this time. It was 2010 and you were still oh, what the fuck is happening here? Is this ever going to come back? this was more painful like in March than any point in 2008. But I mean, the markets came back so hard, and the just literally like criminal activity they're pulling to prop the market at this point is comical. So you almost believe it. You almost want to watch Dave Portnoy and be like, yeah, stocks really do never go down, because they're making sure that that's the case. But so, yeah, I mean, I would say it's comparable, but obviously that the big recovery this time was a lot more dramatic and painless, unless you sold the bottom.
Which was actually quite easy to do if you think about it, right? Because it was smashing through the levels. It was smashing.
Hedge funds did it. I mean,
exactly.
I think they said that 12% of hedge funds were profitable in both April and May, and those were arguably the most bullish 2 months in the history of the market if you look back at it, right?
Yeah.
So
that's very true.
It wasn't just your average person that was getting destroyed, right? It was the big money, the guys who were supposed to be smart and have the inside information, they were getting destroyed.
Yeah. It's kind of like crazy. It's kind of crazy because before we put up this perhaps S&P 500 chart on your end, if you don't mind. I'm really looking forward to hearing your overall thoughts, about, well, again, the industry crossing new all-time highs, right? While at the same time, struggling so hard with the unemployment. But at the same time, struggling so hard with economic slowdown, the GDP decrease, and overall inflation that is actually just going crazy. How would you, let's say, what would you say about these?
I think it's disgusting. Listen, like I have not pulled my money out of the market. So I don't think it's that disgusting, I guess, right? I mean, I've never strayed from my investing strategy, which is just dollar cost averaging into the stock market indefinitely, because over time, stocks always go up. But I have disproportionately weighted my overall portfolio to crypto in the past 6 months, which was something that I was never comfortable with before. And that's not a financial decision. It's a fuck the system decision, 50% of Americans have any exposure to the stock market, roughly. And half of those people have like less than a few $100s in the stock market, or they have like a zombie 401k or IRA that they bought some mutual fund and forgot about it, that they're not actively managing. So like everything else that happens in this country and in this world, the rise of the stock market and quantitative easing and money printing disproportionately helps rich people and leaves everybody else behind, right? If you don't have a job, you don't care if like your $10 worth of stock that you own is now worth $13, and I think that that's like a very important distinction, because I think that people are still hurting. I didn't see that. I mean, the jobs report will come out tomorrow, but in the United States, still 1 million people filed for unemployment last week. 1 million people. That would have been a record, crazy. 6 months ago. And now it's like, oh, we did great. We only lost 1 million jobs this week, in a week. So people are hurting. The economy is in shambles, like you said. We're seeing GDP contraction across the world. It's all being propped up by monetary policy and by central banks. And it's a house of cards, and listen, it may never fail. It will eventually, but we may not see it fail anytime soon, like the sort of Bitcoin maximalist, theory that the dollar is I don't think that's going to happen necessarily. But I do think that like you're seeing a grand awakening among people that like this is a really broken system. And I think your average person never thought about money. They never thought about like how fiscal policy affected their life. But now I think if you're an average person and you see the price of the stock market and then you see your bank account drawing down to almost zero and you're getting no help, you have to be able to see it, right? So I think honestly, man, I look at the stock market and I think it's disgusting. Like I have trouble even trading it.
By the way, could you pull up this S&P 500 chart, for example?
Yeah, one second. I have a SPY chart. I guess that's it's basically the same thing.
Yeah, whatever.
But there's one line on my chart, the all-time high. So, yeah. What I find most interesting about this chart, obviously, is like anytime you look at something like this, you want to see volume confirming a trend. So you can see we had this huge spike in selling volume and then just decreasing volume this entire time up, right? Which is why everyone's going shorted here. Here's a level, shorted here, I should probably short it here, and there's even people who, you see it down here and these lows right here were swept below, right? So like, hey, let's throw a line on this chart, right? Well, this retest should have been a short, right? By any, if you're like a TA person and you see that level that strong, you get boom, you're shorting it down to here. It didn't happen.
They say you never trade against central banks, right? You never trade against central banks.
Don't fade the Fed, right? Don't fade the Fed. So, and I think that that's true. But also, like, looking at this shows you how ridiculous and somewhat useless charts are when you're charting like the stock market as a whole. Of course, you can see certain things about human behavior when you look at this, but it's very difficult to like trade it. Just as an example, I don't even know what these arrows are pointing at. This is so old. But this is back to this is only back to 94.
You were placing these arrows back in 2000.
Yeah, well, clearly these I believe that these were all points. Looking at it now, where these like long wick dojis failed. Just looking at it, like that should have been a reversal. That should have been a reversal. But so this only goes back to 94 on TradingView. But if you looked at this chart back to like the early 1900s, it looks exactly like this, right? Always up. Great Depression, buying opportunity, always up, always up, always up. So if you want to talk about like trading stocks, you're always trading against the trend. If you're selling, you're shorting.
That's
Period.
True.
Like if you zoom out, there's never been a time that you shouldn't have bought stock if you had more than a 10-year time horizon. In fact, I don't think there's ever been a 10-year period, including the Great Depression or Great Recession, where you didn't still get like a 7% return or something. So, it's kind of like absurd to even try to short it. Now, listen, I shorted a bunch in here. I was right. Shorted again, wrong. Stop shorting. Wrong. One time, fool me, fine. Fool me twice, that's my fault. But here you go. I mean, we're moving into all-time high territory. It's completely flying on completely diminished volume, and now we're even seeing that the volume here is lower than the volume was even before any of this. So not only are we, like, you might expect a decrease because this selling was so strong, but to see like your average volume now, like to see it generally lower than the candles over here. I mean, nobody's trading this like they were, right? It's you can see this is not like people, and even like my friends at hedge funds are like largely have been on the sidelines or were wrong in trying to short, because it just doesn't make any sense. But it makes 100%. Sense if when they're buying corporate bonds and the Fed is actually buying stock, I guess it makes sense, right? They're not going to let it fail.
I'm quite sure they did.
Not before this election. Well, they buy corporate bonds, right? I mean, like if a company that has billions and billions of dollars in cash reserves can issue a bond and the government will still buy it, even though that company has cash, that is the most criminal and absurd thing in existence. I want people to understand that if you live in the United States, they might have sent you $1,200 check, but these companies, they gave billions of dollars when they literally didn't even need it. It is socialism. It is welfare. It's just welfare and socialism for the rich. So if you have a problem with socialism, but you're exposed to the stock market or you're a trader and you need to check what really socialism is, right? Because socialism doesn't only apply to poor people. Right? Any free money that someone doesn't need. So, I mean, these guys are giving their friends money. It's, these CEOs are getting their bonuses. Nothing is stopping this train for the wealthiest, the top 1%. It's cronyism. We do not have capitalism. And that's why I love Bitcoin. Crypto is a free market, right? People say it's manipulated. That's not manipulated. This is manipulated.
Yeah, every market is manipulated to an extent. Just trading itself is nothing else but manipulation. And well, the manipulation comes with an actual, let's say, lack of, enough liquidity, I guess, because you can truly manipulate market to, again, fool the people, because you need to fool the people, because otherwise you're not having the liquidity to, buy a big amount of the asset, right? Or sell the
right. And that's why charts work. That's why charts work, because you see the same patterns of when those people decide that there's enough liquidity to make their move. I mean, that's why you see, the long wick SFPs and you see these patterns forming. It's because it's just a visualization of that exact behavior. But, the idea that the Bitcoin market is manipulated, it's true depending on your definition, but it bothers me because like, when you see what's happening in the stock market, that's manipulation, right? People like to scream manipulation in Bitcoin because it goes against them. It's the same thing, like saying someone was lucky, saying this, you lost money, so it was manipulated, right?
I lost money, and that must be a scam, right?
So it's a scam, but it's not. It's just that it's a small market. It's a market where somebody with disproportionate wealth can move the market, but that's not manipulation. That's literally the definition of a free market. If that person is dumping on you, someone is buying it, right? If that person is buying and price is shooting up, somebody is selling it, So just because it goes against you or it moves fast or because the market is being moved by a few parties does not, to me, inherently mean manipulation. It just means that they're fortunate enough to be big players in the market. And you have the beautiful opportunity of trying to ride on their back as opposed to trying to fight against them. So you just need to be on sides and find what they're doing, which is very difficult. Don't get me wrong, which often the problem is it's counterintuitive, right? Because they're using your emotion, they're using your natural feeling about what should happen against you, right? That's why, like, if you were looking at the SPY, right? Imagine if now this dropped like this, right? People do all-time high, longs are filling, and shorts are like getting locked out, buying, and then dump it. You know what I mean? And so, that's kind of what you saw here, right? This should have been a short. They know that. Look at that buying volume where people were theoretically shorting. It's crazy.
Yeah. So. Yeah, but I'm just looking, I'm just looking, and kind of like at this bird chart, at this crash, right? That took a couple of weeks to actually, just finalize in a way with so insane gaps in the middle, right? They were like literally largest gaps you could literally spot on the market, and it was on an institutional market. I mean, the legacy market itself. So it's unprecedented. Like even I guess in since the actually great recession of the 1920s. But
I mean, for this candle to close at 297 and then Monday it opens at 275 is crazy.
Yeah, exactly. We also have touched upon crypto and Bitcoin. So why don't we pull up a Bitcoin chart that you're actually having on the top?
Yeah, sure.
I'm pretty curious myself, and I truly guess the listeners are going to be truly intrigued to know your opinion on where we are heading for Bitcoin in the long-term perspective.
Let me see if I've got a right chart. All right. Well, then I'm just switching over to the monthly because if we want to talk long-term, there's no reason to be looking at 4-hour charts, right? Yeah. So, I mean, long-term, I'm extremely bullish on Bitcoin, and I don't need a chart to tell you that, right? I mean, the world is falling apart, and I think Bitcoin is an answer to that, right? And I think that as the world moves more fully digital, I think more people are going to be acquainted with the idea of a wallet when central banks start using digital currencies. I just think there's a lot of reasons to be generally bullish on Bitcoin. And to be clear, when I got into Bitcoin, I was just in it for making dollars. If you go back to my tweets, like probably from like even a year, 2 years ago, I'd always be like, I'm just trying to make money. I'm trying to make money. But then, like with everyone else, I think if you're here long enough, the light bulb kind of starts to flicker, and then you realize that this really is important, and so, you look at a monthly chart here, and you see this candle, and you see this bullish engulfing candle. I mean, and you see this wick. I mean, we reversed. You know what I mean? And obviously, something. Doesn't matter where you draw it. We can draw it there. We can draw it here. You choose your poison. Maybe we draw it there because it's so pretty when you get the retest right here. But the downtrend's broken, right? This 10,540 level, let's highlight it, pink or something. This was a macro. This made a higher high on this bearish structure here. So, and then you look at the month, and you pull these two levels, and literally this monthly candle retests that almost to the dollar, right? Comes back and then finds resistance slightly above this swing high, which is that liquidity that we're talking about. So I don't really care what happens from here. I'm not selling any in my longer term stack. I mean, I go in and out all the time. I take profits as a trader and stuff, but as an investor, I mean, I would be very, very surprised if we didn't see, certainly above the 14,000s by the end of this year. But and I don't like to make grand price predictions, but above, certainly above the all-time high in the coming months to year. And then from there, I think it goes a lot higher. I had a really interesting conversation recently. You might know Travis Kling from Twitter. He's a hedge fund guy. And something he's sort of really, I hadn't thought about that he and I were talking about. And he said, listen, like, he deals with institutions and money. And he obviously, like everyone else, is like, real money is here now, right? This isn't just like retail raising the market like 2017. But he said, what people don't realize is that, like, we're talking about hundreds of billions of dollars in market cap, right? I mean, Apple is 6 times, 7 times bigger than all of crypto, whatever it is at this point, 5 times, whatever. And he's like, big money cannot buy crypto right now. It's too small. They want to buy it, but it literally needs to be trillions in market cap for them to even be exposed to it, because it's not big enough for them to be able to enter and exit positions. So he's like, we're going to 30, 40,000. And when we get there, that's when the big money starts buying and takes this to 100,000. And he was like, had so much conviction about it. He was like, I talk to these people and they're like, I want to buy Bitcoin. I'm just not doing it till it's a $30,000 asset.
Yeah. I've heard it so many times, to be frank.
Yeah. And it's just, but like, even an experienced trader, like the notion that like you want to buy at a more expensive price is always like, seems so counterintuitive and contradictory, but that is the case. As traders, obviously we'll be like, when it breaks this level, that'll be my confirmation. But like, we're at $11,479 as we're recording this, and we're talking about buying at 30 or 40,000, right? So it's it's got to do a 3 or 4x before they even care.
I'm just saying, I've heard so many times, and I've seen so many times people, in my threads or in my comments or anywhere else, that they would say, no, you are wrong. This chart is so bearish. I'm bearish until we break 20K, right? And again, if you're an institutional investor and you're lacking the liquidity pool itself, I can truly understand that. And well, I think it just surprises me just a little bit, right? Just a little bit. I'm not so surprised with what you said about this institutional, let's say, industry that truly wants to get in Bitcoin but is lacking the liquidity, right? Which is actually true, because if you think about it, there's not really, not many institutional places, for like the exchanges, right?
Not easy to buy $10 billion in Bitcoin and know that you could sell it if you had to. That's the problem. Exactly. It's like that. We saw what happened in March when people wanted to get out of it, right? When bonds were crashing and people needed money, they went to Bitcoin because they could get liquidity, but that took price from like 9,000 to 3,600 or something, just because people needed to sell. So they can't mess with something that behaves like that when it's risk off. Yeah.
But I tell you one thing, Scott, I have, recently, especially since this March, incident, this Black Swan crash, I noticed one thing that is completely different in Bitcoin history than when compared to what it used to be before the crash. And this is extreme similarity between precious metals and Bitcoins. And I truly mean gold, silver, and Bitcoin, like such a trio, right? And all that you can see in the charts is whenever, let's say, there is some more violent reaction on the market, on the gold or in silver, you see practically the same reaction on Bitcoin. And, although, it may be even crashing again, it may dump, 1K, 2K, but paradoxically, to me, it's more bullish than it's ever been, because it truly means that, again, if such a big move happens on Bitcoin and it happens on gold and silver, it means that exactly the same money and the same capital is sitting in all the markets. So again, this is just a confirmation that we are at the stage already that big money is in Bitcoin.
And it's a signal of maturity if the digital gold narrative actually has 100%. Evidence behind it, because until 5 months, even in March when it dumped, people were like, digital gold, stupidest thing. It's 3,000. You're idiots. Right. And now all of a sudden everybody's like digital gold because it went back up. First of all, narratives change faster than like underwear. So it's hard to keep up with what any of us, myself included, think at any given moment, because we're all, staring at this thing all day and trying to figure out what the hell is happening at any given moment. But I agree with you. But to me, it's less about gold and silver strength or weakness than it is about dollar strength and weakness. And, people have been screaming about the stock market correlation, and clearly they moved in similar manners at certain times here. But like, to me, correlation, it's the evidence is not there when you zoom out any beyond the last few months. And so, yes, when things crash, they might crash together, but I think that's where it stops. But inverse correlation to I can literally, let me hear 1 second, I'll pull up a chart.
Go ahead.
It's hilarious. It's really funny to me at this point. It doesn't take rocket science to see this, right? So here's Bitcoin and the dollar. Right, this is Bitcoin in blue. Look at this peak and valley, peak and valley, peak and valley, peak and valley, and then crossing it. Like I said, it's right there. It's in front of you. So when the dollar is weak, people buy Bitcoin. When the dollar is raging, people sell these things. And that is similar behavior to stocks, to gold and silver, and somewhat to stocks. The stock market generally moves somewhat inversely to the dollar as well. So yeah, I think eyes on the dollar if you want to see where it's going. But keep in mind that the government wants a weak dollar, not a strong dollar. And they seem to get what they want if you've been watching.
That's interesting. That's interesting. That's really interesting if you think about it, right? I have seen, some research, some reports on, the economic data on, the around 27 to 30% increase over the M2 money aggregate supply, the monetary supply, over just 1 year. Since 2019, they increased by 27 to 30% this entire money supply. How crazy is that? What does it do to dollars' power, to the dollars' buying power? It's crazy.
Yeah, they want a weaker dollar. Like you said, pumps the stock market. That's what people see. That's how you win elections. That's how, a lot of people own our dollars. A lot of people want our dollars. They can pump as many as they want. It doesn't really matter, right?
Yeah,
and the inflation thing is interesting because, printing money is a meme, right? There's not there's some printing press that's literally firing off 24/7 so that we can go get more dollars. It's all about available capital to banks to lend. Right. So there's only inflation if the banks have someone to lend to and people have a major appetite for loans. And so even though they're printing money, which means making basically endless funds available to banks to loan, I don't think that people right now are taking those loans to any great degree. So I don't really think, I think the money printing is a bit of a meme in practice. What people view as I think that the Fed is definitely buying bonds and buying stock, corporate bonds and those things. And that's where we're really seeing it with the quantitative easing. But I don't think we're seeing this huge spike in loans. People are taking cheap mortgages when they can, so it's not hurting the real estate market. But
smells like 2008.
I'm surprised that housing prices have not crashed. And I was very early to say that they would. And I guess I can say for now that I was wrong, which is fine. But yeah, you can get a 30-year mortgage in the United States for under 2% now. And that was, 4% just a year or two ago. And when I was a kid, my savings account, my bank account in the 80s got 12 or 14% interest or something. But my parents' mortgage was 14 or 15%. It's so we had this sort of hyper high interest rates. Crazy. And now you put your money, that's such another strong argument for Bitcoin. I made this comment. I was on a live stream yesterday. It just kind of came out, but I realized in my mind, at least the way I think about it now, is that your dollars are for spending and your Bitcoin is your savings account now.
Yeah.
Because you can't save dollars anymore. You might need to use them and you can't, but they're not doing anything for you. The days
they're not doing anything else than just losing value.
Right. The days of I'm just going to hoard my dollars in the bank account and make, and my wealth will compound. You get nothing. You don't even get 1% in a savings account anymore. So you can't do that. It's why I feel terrible for millennials, they inherited this broken monetary system where you have to take tremendous risk just to do what baby boomers did by leaving their money in a bank, It's really crazy. So I think that, Bitcoin is a better chance for you to compound gains long-term as a savings, just as a simple savings account, versus dollars. So it's hard to want to spend. I spend crypto. I feel I need to be a part of the movement. I use my crypto credit cards and I do it, but it hurts a little bit because you're I'd almost rather be spending the dollars and saving the crypto,
100%. And well, Scott, you've been so generous with your experience, with your time, with all of your knowledge. And before I let you go, I truly want to touch upon one last thing. I'm so curious, and I'm quite sure a lot of viewers are going to be also intrigued even more by what ventures projects you're working on right now, and what are your plans go with?
Yeah, so that's an interesting question. So it's everything for me kind of just happens as opportunity presents. I don't have a grand master plan at all. I think I really have slowed down, and I'm just enjoying the ride to some degree. So my Twitter account grew for whatever reason that was not contrived or planned. It just it happened. And then I started to realize it wasn't enough for me.
You were just lucky. You were just lucky, you say.
It's super lucky. So it's funny because I had 40,000 followers in music, and I had the blue check for music, which helps, of course. But I pissed all them off. I just stopped talking about music and started talking about crypto, and I lost half my followers. It went down to 20, and then it kind of built up from there. But I was lucky, honestly, to that degrray. Probably in 2018, 2009, 2018 I think is when I really dropped, and then it started to grow again. But so I felt like I had so much to say. I didn't know if anyone wanted to listen. I just wanted to create, to express myself. So I started a free newsletter in November, and I literally was I just want to be able to instead of posting Twitter threads, I just want to write this shit down somewhere, That started to become a lot of work. So I kept the free version, and I started, a $15 a month. I was that's the cheapest I could do to justify my time. And that became almost a full-time job and obsession for me. So I was putting it out 2-3 times a week, and I still do that. I do it all myself. You know what I mean? It's just, and I love doing it. I absolutely love it. It keeps my pulse on the market. It keeps me looking at charts. It forces it almost keeps me accountable, because if I'm answering to other people, even if you're just giving me $15, I want to make sure that I'm giving you good information and whatever. So I think it's as much a service to myself as it is to them. And then maybe in January, I got a email from Jason at Blockworks, and he was you should do a podcast, man. I was I don't want to do a podcast. I've never done a podcast. I don't know how to do a podcast. And he was trust me, we'll do everything. It's all you gotta do is show up. He's you find people you want to talk to. And so then I started doing that, and I felt I was pretty crappy at it. I was preparing all these questions. I felt I was sort of a robot. Now I've gotten to the point where I don't even do much prep. I just really read about the person, and then I show up and have a conversation. And then I came to realize sponsors were willing to pay for this thing, making money, and I get to call anyone I want and learn from them for an hour. The most brilliant people who would have probably never talked to me before, I can hit them up or have someone I know try to make an introduction or something, and they'll talk to me. You know what I mean? And so it's like getting paid to go to college from the best people in each field. So it's you get to have this mentor for an hour. So I love doing that, right? So and then the Twitter hack happened, a couple months ago, and I got hacked and removed from Twitter only for days, but it was terrifying for me. To lose my voice, the realizing the sort of counterparty risk I was taking by having all of my audience in one place. So I was I'm launching a website just so people can find me and have everything in one place. So I did that, and now I manage the website. It's way too much work. So, and at that point I got way out over my skis. I've admitted this recently on Twitter. And I think the newsletter content, it suffered a little bit, or not suffered. I just think I became kind of I was selling more than I was providing, which was never my intention. I started doing a weekly Sunday issue, and that was just look what I did this week. And then I was kind of nobody gives a shit what I did this week. Who cares? Who am I, right? And so I pulled back a lot actually recently, and I'm trying to kind of focus on those core competencies, the things I think that resonated with people. And I'm the first to admit when I make a mistake. I'm the first to leave my terrible tweet up and not delete it, and just take the beating and whatever. But, so right now I'm really focused on just continuing to put out a great newsletter and continuing to, do the podcast. And as you get to a certain point where all these companies want a piece of you to some degree, and I'm not really comfortable just doing that. But because of the podcast and having sponsors, I end up working with the sponsors, and so in that capacity, like long before, not even in that capacity, like I became an advisor to a project called Sentivate, which you might be familiar with, but that was before I was even like really, I probably had 30,000, 40,000 Twitter followers then. And I've had the opportunity to like, just like with the podcast, I like, how it is now. I can like call the CEOs of these companies and ask them what's up. Like you're in a Telegram chat, like you just find yourself in these situations where you're connecting with all the people. Like I'm trading this coin. I don't even know what it is, but now I'm meeting the CEO and we're having a conversation. I invite him on the podcast. He gets me super excited. Like I want to do something with them, and it's just like this endless sort of thing where it's like creative cooperation. And so like, I'm definitely looking for,
it's just
like
building.
Advisor. Yeah, it's just building. Like, and I've definitely embraced the opportunity to like use my brain to help advise people, whether they're strangers, whether I'm compensated, whether I'm not. It's always transparent if I am. You know what I mean? You guys have Yellow Block. You know what I mean? Like, exactly what I'm talking about. Like, you have a pulse of the market, and people want to understand the market, so they come to you to help them create the content that that delivers their best face forward to the market. And I think that's not something I can do. Like I'm not a good marketer in that way, but so we all have all these kind of like side things, and I just think
I would argue you're not a good marketer, Scott.
Well,
I think you're a great marketer.
It's just I don't know. I just think like. Maybe, but
there you go.
But people don't approach me to like market their stuff. They're not like make me a cool video. That's just not my core competency.
Uh-huh.
But I'm speaking. I'm preaching to the choir right now. You know what I'm talking about. It's just like you really. This is a very, very, very tight knit community, and I think when you get to a certain level on Twitter, especially if you're doxxed, I think. Because you're a real person, that they can see and talk to and can't hide, it gives you a lot of opportunities. And so I'm really excited to hopefully build with more of these projects that I'm passionate about in the future. And like, it's funny because people often think that I'm getting, you get it too. You get accused of being a shill for like literally anything positive I post, somebody is in the comments saying you got paid for that. It's like, I'm not even allowed to be passionate about stuff anymore. Yeah. Like if I shared my friend's music when I was a DJ, nobody would be like, your friend paid you. But now if like a friend of mine is like, hey, can you tweet this for me? And it's like, I'm like, yeah, this is awesome. And I tweet it. They're like, how much do you get paid for that? I'm like, my Twitter is not, we're not like, it's not for sale. Like I'm just sharing things I'm passionate about. But if I put a link in anything, somebody thinks that I got paid, so it's a delicate balancing act. To be, organic and true and not piss off the community in one way or another. But I think my real goal is just keep building what I'm doing and touching on the very beginning of this conversation, like when the luck and opportunity happens to be open to it and ready to capitalize on it.
Yeah, I think this is a great word, Scott. And just to kind of like wrap it up, I think, people that are interacting with you or me, or anybody else on the Twitter, let's call influencers sport to an extent with this large following, you would see, I'm quite sure, again, just as you said, people who, these are two groups of people, those who build and those who want to destroy, right? And just, I think this summarizes perfectly that, it all corresponds and comes back to this lack stuff, right? When you build, when you focus on creating and giving back your energy to the people, right? It just comes around multiplied by many, many times. And that's what I think just makes you a great person that you are.
I appreciate that, man. I really do. And I think there's a lot of, like, I've met the most brilliant and interesting people in this space that I've ever met in my life in the last year or two. I mean, I think it's just going to absolutely skyrocket. It's hard not to be bullish on crypto when you actually talk to the people that are, building things, like you said.
Yeah.
And listen, I said even, before those people that are trying to destroy the trolls, the whatever, the community members who are really I think most of those people mature and will change. And, I don't think that that's there's anything inherently wrong with them. And I think at the end of the day, when they all realize you can tear people like you and myself down We get it. We know that we're targets, but at the end of the day, like everything I'm doing is to make myself, I'm not going to say it's all altruistic, and everyone else in this community, make them money and make them happy. Even the worst troll, the meanest person to me in the world, I wake up every day and I'm like, how can I bring crypto mainstream and make us all fucking rich? You know? So like, you can do whatever you want to try to get in my way of that. But really, like, I do believe in it and really do want that to happen. And I want it to happen for even the people who are like the cruelest and meanest to me, you know, because I think then they'll be happy.
Yeah. And that's what I think, you know, just makes people, you know, fall in love with what you're doing. And this all just, you know, combined of, what is it, like almost 120K followers, right? It's such an amazing platform. And well, all I can say is, you know, just take an example of me again, just getting super close to 100K followers. I wake up like every day.
By the time this comes out, you'll be 100K. I feel it.
Not sure. I mean, I hope. But the truth is, again, I wake up every single day and I just think, okay, what can I do to take a use of my responsibility? Because the truth is that your big following is a big responsibility, right?
Yeah.
Many would not think about it, but when you have the audience, and the larger the audience is, the more goodness you can spread at one point, at one time, right? So I just, you know, focus and do my best also on building. So I truly think, you know, deep inside we are kind of like soulmate builders, right? For the industry.
I agree, man. We connected very quickly when we obviously met in person. Yeah. We've remained friends since. So yeah, I think that you have that same spirit, you know, and music. People, I don't know if everybody here knows how good you are at like playing the guitar and singing. But, they should.
Don't break it, man. No way.
You were rocking at the piano in the Mike Tyson mansion when we were there for the card game. So
yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah, man, I agree with you though. I think, you know, at the end of the day, like it's all about maintaining that positivity and about really just trying to, you know, press forward. Like, I don't know how, I just really like, it sounds like a meme or cliche. I hate the feeling of going backwards. It drives me nuts. So every day I wake up and I'm like, I just want to do one more thing, you know.
100%.
And I can tell you're the same way because I see how much content you put out and what you guys are doing.
I appreciate all your kind words. And well, guys, to all the viewers, there is no way I let you out of this podcast without giving this amazing guest, Scott Melker, a follow on Twitter. You'll find it, Scott, on @ScottMelker. Just simply like that. Go make sure you put on this
Thank you.
Follow button and you're not going to regret it. And one final thing to leave our listeners with. We have this like a custom to make sure that the guest, the VIP guest, has, you know, just the opportunity to leave our listeners with the final word, with the final suggestion that you want to, well, just say.
That's very, very easy for me, actually. And that is, don't be a degenerate and trade it all away before it's actually worth something. You know, I've always said that no matter how good I got at trading, I would only trade with a small part of my capital. And I've never strayed from that. I'm an investor, right? I want to buy stuff that I think is going to be worth more and hold it for a really, really long time. And that's how I've approached it for years. And I've made more money, honestly, probably investing than trading. So I can only say that, like, if you do feel like, if you love Bitcoin and you really believe in it, then why would you trade it all away before it really reaches its potential? So just take 10 or 15%, trade with that, put the rest away in cold storage. Don't think about it. And really just let it grow. And if you lose that 15%, stop. Just don't do it, right? You don't have to be a trader. Most people suck at it. I was a pretty bad poker player. I lost a lot of money doing it. Eventually I was like, this sucks. It's not fun anymore. I'm not going to play that much poker. I've lost money, you know, and just, you don't need to trade just because everybody says it's great, when you definitely should not be trading with more than a small percentage of your capital. It's going to be worth more. Don't lose it now.
I think these are great words, Scott. These are great words. Yeah, I truly appreciate your time. I truly appreciate you coming over to today's Nest Show podcast. And I'm truly inspired by you. I'm quite sure many people are even more inspired by what you do, by how amazing person you are. And I wish you just keep being yourself. You're your best.
You're a good man, Birb. Thank you.
Yeah. You know, I appreciate it, guys. all you're coming to today's podcast as well. Our today's guest was Scott Melker. Again, make sure to follow him on Twitter. And that's the way we finish. Today's Nest show is out.
Beaksy is an easy-to-use cryptocurrency exchange. Get verified in minutes. Buy and sell popular cryptocurrencies on a safe, compliant, insured U.S. exchange. Enjoy everything you need in one place. A two-way ramp for major currencies, credit and debit card support, an industry-leading API, responsive customer support, and a 5-star mobile app. Love your primary cryptocurrency exchange? If not, make the switch to Beaksy today. Visit Beaksy by clicking the link in the description.
I'd like to thank our listeners for joining this episode of The Nest Show. Again, we want to thank our sponsors at Prime XBT for their support of the show and for their support of our listeners. Once again, after signing up to trade at thebirbnest.com/PrimeXBT, be sure to follow up on the announcement channel of our Discord and learn how to capitalize on their generous trading bonus offer that they've exclusively made available to our community. If you've appreciated the depth and breadth of what you've heard with us today, subscribe to our podcast and find our landing page at thebirbnest.com. We have a vibrant Discord community which acts as our central hub of operations, and we welcome you to join us at thebirbnest.com/Discord. We also offer an extensive free bulletin on emerging crypto market trends, exclusive undervalued gem reports, and in-depth expert technical and fundamental analysis at thebirbnest.com/bulletin. We always appreciate engagement from our community, which of course means liking the video and subscribing to our page, where we insist on bringing you the highest quality content available. Also, we're happy to incorporate tips and topics from our listeners and encourage you to email us at thenestshow@thebirbnest.com. This podcast is brought to you by the Birb Nest. Thank you, and trade on.